Hello. Today I will be talking about Mosaic. Now, apparently there's three versions of this, a big Kickstarter, I don't know, colossal edition or something like that that has plastic cities and minis, and then I think there's another medium version, Sphinx version that comes with I think a solo mode and some other stuff. But I have the retail version, which doesn't have any of the plastic or wooden components or whatever. So it's the base model. Anyway, this is the one. I think the rules are basically the same for all of them. So this is the one, the retail edition, that I'll be talking about today. So let's get started with setup. First thing you do, as usual, is place the game board in the middle of the table so all players can reach it. You'll then make piles of the currency in the game, which is stone. These are 5, these are 1s. Ideas, these are 1s, these are 5. Food, these are 5 and these are 1. And then your other currencies are money. You got 20s, 10s, 5s, and 1s. These are just blanks. Each player will then select a player board. They have a nation or civilization on them, but really that doesn't mean anything. You're not limited to building in Greece or anything like that, but it does. It is where you keep your resources, your population, track your production, and you can store your trade goods and other currencies. So each player should take the cubes that go with the color on the player board that they took, as long as they're cities and population and military units in the color that match their player board. In the retail version that I have, population is these little tokens here. Each player starts with 5. I think in the other versions you actually have plastic minis for that, at least in that big Colossus version. And then each player will start with 0 production on each of their currency tracks, and then these are used for if you get to plus 10, plus 20, plus 30, you'll mark that with one of the cubes. Alright, next you'll be putting these fish tiles on these port locations with a ship. You'll put those out on every space like that on the board. Now in a 3-player game, which I'm going to set up for Hispania, the Hispania region here is not used, so I will not put one in this space. So I do have the fish tokens on the other 9 spaces. The 10th one will not be used again because in a 3-player game, Hispania is not used. Next, you'll take these brown cash tokens. On the other side, they have some kind of currency on them. You'll mix those up, and then you'll place 1 on each space with the matching symbol cash space on the board. Again, on a 3-player game, we won't be putting them on Hispania because that region's not in play. So let me get that done. Alright, I have those cash tokens placed out. It should be that each region on the board has 4 cash tokens on it. And again, since Hispania is not in play, I do have 4 tokens left over. Next, you'll get your trade goods tiles. A lot of them will have this X on it, and others will have, let me find one that doesn't have, will have some sort of trade good on them. Anyway, you'll take all those trade goods tiles, you can tell them because they say trade goods on the back, put them face down and mix them all up. Now you will want to remove the one trade good that has a question mark on that. That's used with a specific technology card that makes this just like one random unique trade good. So you can just set that aside. If somebody ever gets that technology card, they can take this trade good. But the others, you turn all face down, mix them up, and then you'll put one on each hex on the game board. You wouldn't put one like here where there's like only a piece of a hex. So you don't put one there, but where there's full hexes, even if they are, well, and like you wouldn't put any in here, that's obviously an open space, but you would put some here. But like you would put one here, even though it's taken up by this box. Um, and you do put one here. I think there's a either out on the Forbidden Games website and on Board Game Geek. I think there is a PDF that has all the spaces numbered where you will put a trade good. So you can look at that if you are uncertain about a space that you should put a trade good or not. And again, there's no need to put any in the regions that won't be used. So in this 3-player game, I won't put any here in the Hispania region. So let me get that done. So when you're done, you should have a bunch of face down trade goods and cash goods on all the spaces that are going to be used during the game. Again, none here in a 3-player game. In a 2-player game, you would also not be using the Gaul region, which is this green region. But in a 4 to 6-player game, you would use all the regions. Anyway, once you have all the tokens on the board, I think normally if you're using the full board, you'll have like 6 trade goods left over. If you, obviously you'll have more if there's some regions you're not using. You'll then turn all the cash and trade goods tokens face up. Any that have an X on them, you'll just remove from the board and they'll go back in the box. Like so. So I'll go ahead and do that for the whole board and come back. Alright, I think I've got them all turned over now and removed any of them that had the X. So when you're done, your board will look something like this. You'll have spaces that have nothing because they had an X in it, and then you'll have other spaces that have trade goods or cash tiles on them. Next, you'll take your technology cards that have an S in the upper left-hand corner like these do. That's your starting technology cards. You'll shuffle those up and deal 5 to each player. Alright, like so. I've got 3 players, dealt 5 to each player. You'll then take your remaining starting technology cards and shuffle them in with the other technology cards that are not starting technology cards. So let me get that done. Important note, make sure you remove the technology empire scoring card before shuffling all those cards together, because I didn't, and then I had to go search for it and shuffle them again. But anyway, once you've shuffled your starting technology cards in with the rest of your technology deck, you will then cut that deck into roughly 3 equal piles. In a 4 to 6 player game, you'll then shuffle the Empire scoring card into one of these decks and then place the other 2 decks on top of that, so your Empire scoring card is in the bottom third of the deck. But in a 2 or 3 player game, like I'm going to be playing a 3-player game, you will shuffle this Empire scoring card into one of these decks and then place one of the decks on top and one on the bottom, so that your Empire scoring card is in the middle third of the deck. So let me get that done. Alright, so I've shuffled my Empire scoring card into this deck, so I'll put one of my decks on top and one on the bottom. And then that deck will go up here on the board where it says technology. And then you'll draw the top 5 technology cards and place them here in the offer. Like so. Remove the Build Empire scoring card from the build deck, then shuffle your build deck. After you've shuffled your build deck, you'll cut it into 2 equal parts. You'll shuffle your Empire scoring card into one of those 2 decks, and then place the other deck on top so that your Empire scoring card is in the bottom half of the build deck. So let me get that done. Alright, I've shuffled my Build Empire scoring card into this deck. I will place this deck on top of it, then place it on its proper space on the board up here at the top, and draw the top 5 build cards and put them into the build offer. Like so. So now I've got 5 cards in my build offer. Next, you'll shuffle your population deck, of course removing your population empire scoring card first. Then, depending on the number of players, you will count out a number of population cards. In a 2 or 3 player game, you'll count out 10 cards. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. In a 4 or 5 player game, you would count out 12, and in a 6 player game, you would count out 14. The remainder of these cards just go back in the box. So the number that you counted out, you will cut in half. So in a 3 player game, that should be 5 in each half. You'll shuffle your population empire card into one of those halves. So I just shuffled into this half, then you'll place the other half on top of that deck. So your population scoring card is in the bottom half of that population deck. You'll then place that on its space on the game board and put 2 population cards out into the offer. You will then take your tax and tariff cards, remove the tax and tariff empire scoring card, and then count out a number of tax and tariff cards according to the number of players. Again, in a 2 or 3 player game, that's going to be 10 cards. In a 4 or 5 player game, that's going to be 12 cards. And in a 6 player game, that's going to be 14 cards. The cards you count out, you want to make sure that you have an equal number of tax and an equal number of tariff cards. So in a 3 player game, you're going to count out 10 cards, so you'll have 5 tax and 5 tariff cards, which is what I've got here. The remaining cards just go back in the box. You'll then shuffle these tax and tariff cards, your 10, in a 3 player game, your 10 tax and tariff cards together. So let me do that. Alright, and similar to how we did the population deck, after you have those shuffled together, you'll split it into 2 decks, so that'll be 5 cards in each deck. Choose one deck, shuffle your empire scoring card into that deck, and then you'll place the other deck on top of that. So I've just shuffled my empire scoring card into this one, put the other on top of that, place it on the proper space on the board, and then deal 2 out into the offering. You'll then take your Golden Age tiles and Wonder tiles and place them somewhere near the board. I believe in the other versions there's a scoring track board that comes with it that has a space for those, but in the retail version there's no scoring track. So you just put those somewhere near the game board. You then take your 6 government tiles, and there is a space for those. You put those there on the game board. You then take the 15 civilization achievement tiles, shuffle them up. You'll select 9 of those. 1, 2, 3, 9. The remaining ones will just go out of the game back to the box. You'll then place your 9 selected tiles face up somewhere near the game board. Again, on the other versions, I believe there's a space to place those on the scoring track. Select a starting player using some method of your choice and give them the starting player token. In the retail version, it's this punch out. I think at least in the, I'm not sure about that Sphinx version, but I think in the large Colossus or Colossal version, it's a thick, maybe wooden token. But anyway, select a first player, give them that first player token, and they will be the starting player. Starting with the player to the right of the starting player, you'll give them the leader cards, and they will select one to be their leader, and then they will pass that to the player to their right, who will select one, and so forth until you get back to the starting player, who will select a leader last, and then all players will have selected a leader. So here in my example, the Gaul player took the farmer, the Rome player took the artist for their leader, and then my starting player took the general for his leader. Next, you'll draft starting technologies. So each player will select one of their starting technologies to keep. Place that face down in front of them. So for instance, this player chooses this one. Then pass the remaining 4 cards to the player to their left clockwise. So each player will do that, and then with the cards that are passed to you, you'll select another technology card to keep and pass the remaining 3 cards to the player to your left, and so on until each player has selected 5 cards. So let me get that done. Each player, starting with the starting player and then going clockwise, will take one of their cities and place it on one hex anywhere on the board. Now, for instance, this player's player board is Greece. They don't have to place their starting city in Greece. It can actually be placed anywhere on the board. So I'm not really sure why they chose to name the regions or put a region name or city name on the player boards, because it really doesn't make a difference, at least that I've seen, for where you have to place or build any cities. But anyway, each player, starting with the starting player, will select one location where they want to place their starting city. Now, they can't put it on one of the tiles where there's a fish. Those are only for port cities. But it can be any other location. If you put it on a location that has one of the brown cash tiles, then you just take, like if you placed it here, you would take 6 idea currencies, put that in your supply, and then this cash tile is just placed out of the game back in the box. If you take a trade good, if you place your city where there's a trade good, like this one or this one, then you would actually take the trade good and place it in the trade good section on your player board. Where was this? Here. And so we'll just say for a starting city, the blue player is going to place his starting city here, so he'll take this trade good and place that on his board. Now the player to his left, which would be this player, will take his city. He can place it on any location, other than a port city location on the board. So we'll say, for example, he's going to place his here. So he'll take this cash. So he'll get 8 food resources, or currency they call it. So that's a 5, 6, 7, 8. And this just goes out of the game, so I'm just going to put that over here. And he'll put his 8 resources, food resources or currencies, anywhere, in his play area. And finally, the green player will take one of his cities, and he will place it somewhere on the board, and we'll just say maybe he's going to place his here. So he'll take this trade good and place that on his player board. After placing their starting city, each player will look at their leader card and take the benefits there. So for instance, here at the start, the blue player that took the general gets 20 money. So we'll just get 2 10s, put that in his area. He gets 1 infantry unit and +1 population and +10 production. So +1 population, he'll need to get 1 there. And +10 tax production, that is, he'll slide this all the way up to the 10, and then he can just put this marker on the 0. So let me get his +1 population and +1 infantry unit. So here's his +1 population, and then an infantry unit. Whenever you gain an infantry unit, unless it says place it in any region, then you need to place it in the region where you have a city. His city is here in, I think it's Numidia. So when you place your military units, they don't actually, you can just put them in an unused space in the region, or you can just put them near the region. They don't actually occupy a space, a hex in the region, but you need to put them there so you know they're somewhere in that region. So I just will use an unused space here. So that's his infantry unit. Again, I think the big colossal version or whatever has plastic cities and plastic military units, but the retail version does not. It just has the chits. And then your leader may give you some power that can be used during the game, like the general, he can recruit up to 3 military units. So when we talk about the different actions, one of them is recruit. Normally you can only recruit 2 units, but the general, the player with the leader of general, can recruit 3. And then he can eliminate 1 military unit in a single region containing his infantry or cavalry before each empire scoring. So we haven't talked about what empire scoring is, but again, that's a little special power he will have during the game. So the artist starts with 15 money, 5 ideas, and 5 idea production, plus 5 idea production. So his idea production is down here, so we'll slide it to +5. Let's get her 15 money and 5 ideas. So this is 5 ideas, and then 10, 15 money. We'll just put that here on her board. And then she has a little power that she gets +10 money whenever a wonder is built. And at the end of the game, for each one of these culture pillars of civilization, and we'll talk about what those are, but these little icons are pillars of civilization. This one indicates culture. At the end of the game, for every one of these icons she has from cards she'll collect, plus this one on her leader card, she'll get 1 victory point. And finally we come to this player who gets 10 food, 10 money. So let's get their 10 food. So these fish are 5, so we'll just get 2 of those for 10, then 10 money. This is a 10, it says it on there somewhere. Oh yeah, right there, 10. And +5 food production, so we'll move their food production up 5. And 1 farm town. So he will take a farm town token from his supply, and he'll place that on the board. Whenever you gain a town, unless it says you can place it in any region, then normally when you gain a town it has to be placed next to one of your cities. And similar to when you're placing a city, if you place it on where there's a cash tile, you just take what's shown there, and then that cash tile is out of the game if you put it where there's a trade good, which these fish are actually considered a trade good. But you can't place the town there because that's for a port city. So anyway, we'll just say if he's going to place this next to his city here, he's going to put it where that cash tile is, so he'll get 4 stone. So there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. Put that in his or her play area, and then this cash tile just goes out of the game. And if you have the Colossal or Colossus version, whatever version, then I believe all those towns are plastic miniatures also. But anyway, and then he has a special power where he gets to add 1 population to each population cards he takes, and we'll talk about what those are when we get to the actions you can take on your turn. Alright, each player can then play any technology cards that they're able to. Some have a requirement here. If they don't have a requirement, then you can just play them into your play area. For instance, this one has no requirement, so he can just put that face up. He gets plus 3 idea production. This one, agricultural settlement, has no requirement, gives plus 3 food production. This one, irrigation, has no requirement, gives 2 plus 2 food production when played for each of those pillars of civilization symbols, but he doesn't have any of those, so he doesn't get any food production for that. You could save that and play it later instead of playing it now, which would probably be a good idea. So actually he will keep that. So any technology card that you don't want to play yet, you can just keep it face down in your play area. Then later, as a free action on one of your turns in the future, you can play that card as long as you meet the requirements. Again, this one doesn't have any, but it's probably best for him to wait and play this when he's got some of these government pillars of civilization icons, which he doesn't have any right now. So he's going to keep that face down. This one has no requirements. That one just gets him 5 ideas, so he'll take 5 ideas. And this last one, he gains 1 population. Again, no requirement. Gain 1 population plus 2 idea production. So that will give him 2 idea production. And let me get a population. And plus 1 population. Now there are some tokens that, see these say 1 population. There are that have a 5 that you can substitute for 5 of the single population. So I could have got one of those out instead and removed from my some of my single populations. But now you'll see this player has several new pillars of civilization icons, and this card is worth 3 victory points at the end of the game. And he'll keep his 1 technology card here in his area that he hasn't played yet, and he can play that later when he gets some of those government icons. These other icons are building, culture, science, urbanization, I think, population health, and food production. So let's look at the other players' starting technology cards. This player got quarry, so he gets plus 3 stone production. No requirement. This one, no requirement. Gain 1 wild trade good. Well, that's the one I was talking about at the beginning of the game. This one that has a question mark. So he just gets to count that as a wild. It can be used as any trade good in the future, so he just puts that on his player board. This one, craft settlement. He gains 10 coins or money. This one, clay bricks, get 2 stone production and gain 1 population. So he'll get 2 stone production and 1 population. And finally, got this writing one, but it has a requirement of at least 1 icon of science Pillars of Civilization, and he does not have that, so he cannot play this. Again, he'll keep this face down, and in the future, on one of his future turns, if he's managed to gain something that gives him an icon, one science icon, then as a free action on his turn, he could play this and gain the benefit. So he'll keep that face down for now. And finally, let's look at this player's starting technology cards. Got Dance, where they gain 5 ideas. So we'll give them that. They got Villages, so they get to gain 1 population and 1 food production. So let's raise their food production by 1. And they gain 1 population. Alright, they have Magistrates, gain 3 of any single production bonus. So they could choose 1 production of a currency and gain 3 of it. So I think they're going to do that for stone. Alright, they got Construction. This one's also worth victory points at the end. This one, at the end of the game, score victory points equal to your highest scoring project. We haven't talked about projects yet, but that card will give them victory points based on projects. And finally, their last card has a requirement of a building and military. Pillars of Civilization. Well, he's got a building from one of the technology cards he played already, but he doesn't have military, so similar to the other player, he'll have to just keep that face down in his play area, and in the future, when he gets at least 1 military Pillar of Civilization icon, he can play this one for a free action on his turn and then gain the benefit. So he'll just keep that down, face down in his area. And now we finally finished setup, and we can get on with how to play. Alright, so let's get started with how you play. Okay, so the starting player, which remember is the player with this icon, will take the first turn of the game, and they can perform 1 action. After they perform an action, they'll proceed clockwise. So the next player takes their turn, and the next player takes their turn until you get back to the first player, and that will complete the round, with each player taking 1 action. So let's talk about the possible actions. So one possible action is to work, and you don't have to, there's a thing on the board that shows that action, but you don't have to put anything on there. You just say, I'm going to take the work action. As you can see, what that does is give you the population plus your production. So you can produce one of the 3 non-monetary currencies. So you can produce stone, food, or ideas, and you get as many of that currency as your population plus your production value. So in this case, if this player was going to produce stone, well, he has a production value of 0 stone, but he has 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 population, so he would produce 7 stone. And then so he would just take 5, 6, 7 and put that in his supply. If he were to produce food, he would get 3 plus 7, so he would get 10. If he were to produce ideas, he would get 5 plus 7, so 12. And so if he got 12 ideas, he would take 2 5s and 2 1s and just put those in his supply. So again, that's the work action, where you can produce stone, food, or ideas, and that is your population plus whatever value you have on your production for that currency. Okay, another possible action you can do is population. You would choose one of the available population cards in the offer, which in this case they both happen to be the same, so it doesn't matter which one you choose, but you'd have to pay 20 food and then you'd gain 3 population. So you'd pay 20 food from your supply. You would have to have that, which currently this guy doesn't. This guy only has 10, and this guy only has 8. So nobody would really be able to pay 20 right now. Now, one thing, and I haven't mentioned, is your money can be used to pay for, to replace any of the other currencies, stone, food, or ideas at a rate of 2 money per one of those other currencies. So, if you needed to pay 5 food, you could pay 10 money instead, or a combination of food and money, to replace one of those others, stone, food, or ideas. You can never, if you need to pay population for something, you can't use money in place of population. But you can, again, for stone, food, or ideas, but at a rate of 2 to 1. So 2 money to replace one of the other currencies. So anyway, if you decided you were going to do this population, you'd pay 20 food to the supply, you would get 3 population, put it in your area, and then you would discard this card out of the game, and then replace the population card with a new one, which I shuffled these, but anyway, this one's similar to the other ones. There definitely are other population cards. They're not all pay 20 plus 3 population. But that's another action you can do on your turn. Alright, another possible action you have on your turn is to build. You can select one of the available cards in the build offer. Now, if you are going to build a city, one of these that says Merchant City, Port City. I've got 3 port cities. That's a town. So if you're going to build a city, you can kind of see here on the board it says it costs 4 stone and 2 population. So for instance, if you were going to build this Merchant City, you would pay 4 stone from your supply and discard 2 population. So for example, this guy does have 4 stone. He could pay that. And then he would have to get rid of two population back into his bag that's holding his population tokens. Or if you have the bigger version, you'll have the miniatures for your population. Then you take this card and put it into your play area somewhere. And you can see this one gives you plus 3 tariff production. So you'd increase your tariff production by 3. You'd also add 5 money to the tax and tariff bonus area, which is here. So you would take 5 money from the bank or supply, not from your own, that doesn't come from your own personal supply of money, and put it here into the holding area, which is the tax and tariff bonus area. You would then take one of your city tokens, and just similar to at the beginning of the game, you could place it on any hex anywhere on the board that's available. And again, if you place it where there's a cash token, then you just immediately gain that, like you would gain 10 money if you placed it there, and then the cash token just goes out of the game. If you place it where there's a trade good, then you get the trade good and place it on your player board. But anywhere you can place your new city anywhere on an available space on the board. And then because you've added this card to your play area, you have 2 new, on this particular city, you've got 2 new Pillar of Civilization icons that you can use in the future, for technology cards or scoring, that kind of thing. But anyway, so that card will go there. You'll have placed your city on the board. Now, if you had chosen a port city instead, it still costs the same, build city or port city, 1 stone and 2 population, or 2 stone, sorry, 4 stone, 4 stone and 2 population. And it would work the same, but you'd see you would actually gain 10 coins into your personal supply, and then you would add 10 coins to the holding area for the port city. And you'd place one of your port city tokens that actually, or if you have the plastic miniatures, you'd place your port city plastic miniature. But then you place these in one of the port city locations, which is where the fish tokens are. So, for instance, if you wanted to place it here, you would take this token. Now it's a trade good, so it would go into your trade goods, but it would increase your food production by 3. So you could raise your food production by 3. But that's also a trade good. Now, if later in the game all the port city locations are filled, then you can no longer build a port city. Or if you have no more port city tokens or miniatures, if you have that version, then you can't build a port city. If you were to take one that says a town, like this particular one is a farm town, you can see you build a town for free, so there's no cost. You don't have to pay any stone or population. You just take the card. This one says you gain 5 food, so you would actually gain 5 food resources and 1 food production, so you would raise your food production by 1. Then you take a farm town token and place that on the board. Again, it has to go adjacent to a city that you already own, similar to what we showed earlier during setup. So in this case, that if this was the only city Green had, he would have to put it either in this space, or this space, or this space. Because those are the only possible adjacent spaces. And if you put it here or here, you would take, well, you couldn't put it here. That's only for a port city, so you couldn't put it there. But you could put it here, here, or here. And if you put it here, that's a trade good. You would put it on your board. If you put it here, that's a cash token. You would gain 4 ideas and then discard that cash token. But again, then the farm city would be there adjacent to your city. So it has to go adjacent to one of your existing cities anytime it's a town. And then the last thing you would do would be draw a new build card to replace what you took from the offer. Now I'm glad this came up, because the other option you have when you're doing a build is, again, build city or port city, or build a town if whatever's in the offer, or you can build a project if there's a project in the offer. So if we look at this, if you decided to build this project, it costs 5 stone and 5 ideas. So again, you would pay that from your supply. And then you would gain this and put it in your player area. And it's worth, at the end of the game, it's worth 1 victory point for every culture, pillar of civilization you have in your area. And of course, this counts as 1. And so it's just got a question mark on the victory points, because at the end of the game it depends on how many culture tokens you have. So the projects differ, but most of them are for end of game scoring. But they all cost 5 stone and 5 ideas. There is another type of town besides farm town called a manufactory town. And again, you build that the same. It's free to take. A town is free to take, and then it'll give you some benefit shown on the card. So I'm sure we'll probably see one when we do some example turns. And you just get the manufacturing town token and place it just like you did the farm town. It has to be placed adjacent to an existing city. And the rules do say it's always possible to build a city, port, or town for the usual cost shown down here without selecting a card. So either when the cards run out, if the game isn't over at that point, or just if maybe you want to build a city and there's not a city card available in the offer, you can always build a city for 4 stone and 2 population, or a project. Well, if there's not a project, you can't you you can only do city, port, or town without selecting a card. But if you wanted to build a port city, it would cost 4 stone and 2 population, or a town is free. But if you don't select a card to do that, you would not gain any of the benefits shown from the card. So really, I think the best option for that is at the end of the game when there's no more, or when the build offer is empty. But I suppose it could be during the middle of the game you want to build a city and there's not a city card available in the offer, so you may just want to do that as well. And I may as well mention when you're taking trade goods, if you ever were to select a trade good, like if you placed a city here and took this trade good and you already have that trade good on your board, you don't place it in a separate slot. You just place it on top of that already existing trade good, because most benefits from trade goods are for unique trade goods, so different trade goods. So if you get one of the same, you just place it on top of the one that you already have, the existing one you already have. All right, another possible action you can take on your turn is shown here, and that's to build a wonder. Your first wonder that you build costs 20 stone and 5 food. The second one you build costs 25 stone and 10 food. And that's all that's shown here, but you can build additional ones, but each additional one you build, it goes up by 5. So if you were going to build a third one, it would cost 30 stone and 15 food, etc. So when you build a wonder, you look at the available wonder tiles. If they have any special rules, for building them, that'll be shown here, and you'll also see the benefit you get. So this one, if you build that, it's worth 5 victory points at the end, and you gain 2 identical pillar symbols of your choice. Now, there's not any way to really say what those 2 symbols are, other than you'll have to write them down somewhere so you and the other players know that you have those 2 pillars of civilization symbols. There's not any tokens or anything you can collect to use those. For instance, this one right here, it says, oops, it shows it must be built in a port hex. So if there's not an available port hex, you can't build it. Anyway, you'll select one of the available wonders, pay the cost, then you put the tile in your play area, and then you find the appropriate wonder token. I don't think we mentioned these during setup, but these are the wonder tokens. You just place them somewhere near the board. So if you were building Stonehenge here, you would find the Stonehenge wonder token, which is that one. And then the wonder has to be placed in a region in which you have a city. And similar to placing cities, towns or cities, if you place it on a cash tile, then you discard that cash tile and get the benefit. If you place it where there's a trade good, then you take the trade good and put it on your player board. It doesn't have to be placed adjacent to your city, but it does have to be placed in a region where you do have a city. And then at the end, they're all at the end of the game. Normally, you'll gain some victory points. For instance, this one is you'll get 1 victory point for every 2 population you have. All right, one of the other possible actions you can take on your turn is to take a technology card from the offer. It shows here that technology costs 5 ideas, so you would just pay 5 ideas from your personal supply back into the supply there, and then you can take any technology card. Now, when you take the card, for example, this one, to play it, you have to be able to pay the 2 costs, have those 2 food pillars of civilization symbols. So, for instance, if this player bought this technology card on their turn, they've only got 1 food symbol, so they could not play it face down immediately, kind of like the one they have from setup. They would just have to keep it face down in front of them, and then later, in a future turn, if they do have another food symbol and they meet the requirements there, then for a free action on their turn, they can play it face up in front of them and gain the benefit, just as we talked about earlier during setup. With this one, he didn't have the requirement of a science pillar of civilization, so he has to wait till he has that, and then he can play it later. Also, if you do take one, and even if you do have the requirements, but you don't want to play it at this time, kind of like we had during setup, with this guy, he got the one which is going to give him +2 food production per government symbol, but he didn't have any at this time, so he just opted not to play it. He'll wait till he gets some government symbols and then play it for a free action on his turn. So similarly, when you take a technology card, you can decide if you don't want to play it immediately, even if you have the requirements, you can place it face down in your area and then play it on a future turn as a free action if you meet the requirements. And then, of course, the last thing you do is refill the offer with another card from the technology deck. Okay, another action you can do is select one of the cards from the tax and tariff offer. If you select a tariff, with this one you'd get 3 times your unique, this is in money that you're going to get, so you'd get 3 times your unique trade goods. So for instance, if this player selected this tariff card for his action, he would get 3 times his unique trade goods. Well, he's just got 2, so 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 times his number of cities. Currently he just has 1 city, so that would just be 2, so that's 8, plus his tariff production, which is currently at 0, so he would just get 8 money, so you would take 8 money from the supply there and put it in your personal supply. And then you keep this card in your play area, because as you'll see at the bottom, that says 2 unrest. At the end of the game, for final scoring, you'll subtract from your victory points the total of unrest that you have. Now you may get some things like wonders or some technologies that will subtract from unrest, and for instance this artist leader, it has a -3 unrest. So at the end of the game you'll add up all your unrest, and then any things that subtract from your unrest, you'll use those. But if you still have a positive amount of unrest, you'll subtract that from your total victory point score at the end of the game. And then, of course, the last thing you'll do is replace the tax and tariff card that you took with a new card from the stack back into the offer. Oh, and I forgot to mention, any money that's in the tax and tariff bonus or holding area that's been put there. Remember, you add 5 here when you build a city and 10 here when you build a port city. So when you do select one of these cards, not only do you get the money for what's shown on the card, you also get any money that's in that holding area. And once all the cards are gone, you can still take a tax or tariff action by using what's printed on here in the board. So you could take a tax action where you'd get add your population plus your tax production plus any government symbols, pillar of civilization symbols, and that total you can take in money. And if you do a tariff action, you can get 2 times your unique trade goods plus number of cities plus your tariff production. Alright, let's look at the next possible action you can do. You can do a military recruit action on your turn, where you can recruit. Most people can just recruit up to 2 units at 5 money per unit, and there's infantry or cavalry. You can recruit either one of those. Up to 2. Again, if you have the general, he can recruit 3. And when you recruit those, they have to go in a region. I kind of talked about this during setup. They have to go in a region where you have a city. They all go in the same region. And again, they're not actually taking up a hex in a region, so you can just put them on an empty hex in a region or just next to the region, but they're just considered to be in the region. So you can recruit, and you also can move units that you either just recruited or that you already have on the board. So you can recruit and move, or you could just move, or you could just recruit. When you move units, you can move them to one adjacent region at a cost of 1 coin per unit, and adjacent is obviously, this is adjacent to 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 this, but some that you may not consider. Italy, or the Italia region here, is considered adjacent to Numidia, so you can kind of tell that they're connected by hexes here, so those are adjacent. Again, Italy and Greece, but that one's kind of obvious. Hispania and Numidia are considered adjacent regions, and again, you can tell that because they have connected hexes. So that one's kind of obvious, but maybe just because they didn't exactly touch here, but they are considered adjacent for moving units. One that's not quite as obvious is the Egypt region and the Numidia region are considered adjacent. So that one was not obvious to me. But Greece, which is this green one up here, is not considered adjacent to Egypt. So that's specified in the rule book. So that one, those two are a little, this one being adjacent is not obvious. I think it is obvious to me that Greece is not adjacent to Egypt, but that one is specifically called out, so I thought I'd mention it. And again, you can move one or all of your military units at a cost of 1 coin per unit that you move, and they can move to one adjacent region on a turn. And so you can recruit and move, or just recruit or just move. There is another type of unit I didn't mention. There's a siege engine unit, but you can only recruit those if you have the technology, siege engine technology, that lets you recruit them. When you get that, you'll know it because the card says you can recruit siege engine units up to a maximum of 2. I think that's all there is. So you can only ever recruit 2 of those at once. And the last possible action you can take is to form a government. So you can look through these government tiles. If you decide on one that you want to take and can take, you pay the cost. You have to pay the cost in ideas. For instance, this one costs 5 ideas, but you must have at least 2 military pillars of civilization symbols in your play area to take that one. And they're different. This one costs 15 ideas, and you'd have to have at least 2 government symbols and 1 military symbol of pillars of civilization symbols in your area to take those. So they're all a little different, but if you can acquire one, you put it in your play area and you get whatever the benefit is. For instance, this one is during Empire, well, if I can get that focused. During Empire scoring, you will score 5 victory points per region where you have a majority influence. Now you'll score VP per region, and it depends on the number of players. So anyway, if you acquire one, you put it in your play area. You can only have one government at a time. If you decide to acquire a different government, then you have to replace it with one that you already have. One benefit of having a government is once per game, and you can kind of tell it by this arrow, you're allowed to clear the offer of any one of the offers, either build, population, technology, or tariff. So you can clear all the cards in that offer, take them all up, put them at the bottom of the deck from which they come from, and then refill the offer. And once you've done that, then you flip your thing over and you can see it doesn't have that arrow anymore. And then you can't use that power again during the game. Now, if you acquire a different government, then you would receive that government face up, so that would give you that power again. So that's all the possible actions. Now, there are some other things. There's these civilization achievements. If you ever get one of these achievements, or if you've met the requirements for one of these achievements on your turn, you can take the tile. So for instance, this one, if you ever have 15 food production on your turn, you could, if you're the first one to get it, then you would take this achievement and it'll be worth 6 victory points at the end. For this one, if you have all 9 unique pillar symbols in your play area, then on your turn, if you've the first one to do that, you can acquire this. So there's different civilization achievements, and remember, there's some of them that were not chosen for this game, so they could be different in different games. But you're allowed to look at all of them and see if you've met any of those requirements, and then take that achievement if you have. And the same thing for these Golden Age tiles. You can look at those. If you have 6 of the build pillars of civilization in your play area on your turn, then you could take this, and that will give you +3 stone production, plus it's worth 6 victory points at the end. Similarly, each one of these has, if you have 6 of one of the 9 pillars of civilization, so this one, if you have 6 government, you could take that, get 3 tax production, and it's worth 6 victory points at the end. So there's all of those. So on your turn, if you've met multiple of these, or multiple civilization achievements, you can take any of them that you've met. Of course, it's only the first person that meets those that and remembers to take the tile that gets that. So that's all the possible actions. That's talking about the achievements. So next we need to talk about scoring. So one of the main scoring things is the Empire scoring cards. You'll remember we shuffled Empire scoring cards into the build, population, technology, and tax and tariff decks. Whenever a player reveals one of those Empire scoring cards, then you will do a round of Empire scoring. So when you reveal an Empire scoring card, you will go around and score each region of the on the game board that's in play, one at a time. So to score the region, you'll add up who has the most influence in each region. You'll get 2 points for city per city or wonder that you own in that region, and 1 point per town or military unit that you own in that region. And there may be some adjustments to that from some technologies that may give you bonus points in a region or something, but the standard is 2 points for each city and wonder that you have, and 1 point for each military unit and town that you have. So you'll add those up. The person with the most influence will score 3 victory points plus 1 victory point for every city and wonder in the region, even including cities that are not owned by them. So again, that's the person with the most influence will get 3 victory points plus 1 victory point for every city and wonder that's in that region, even if those cities are not owned by them. And then whoever has the second most influence in the region just scores 2 victory points. If there's a tie for most influence in the region, then the 2 tied players for the most influence just both receive the victory points as if they had the highest amount of victory points, and then there is no second place victory points awarded. If there's a tie for second place victory points, then there's just no victory points awarded for second place. So you'll go ahead and go around to each region and score like that. Now, in this retail version, there is no scoring track or scoring board or even score pads included, which I don't understand at all. But as I've mentioned, I think in the at least in the Colossal or Colossus version, there is a separate board that's used for scoring and storing these Golden Age and Civilization Achievement and Wonders. And also, I believe some score pads are included if you want to use those. And I think in that Sphinx version, there's probably at least score pads, if not both the scoring board but anyway, the retail version, for some reason inexplicably, has no scoring pads or victory point tracker board. But you can, from the Board Game Geek website at least, I found where you can download a scoring pad version on there. And government tiles also usually allow some scoring during the empire scoring. Like I mentioned, this one, during empire scoring, you'll score 2 victory points for each region that contains at least one of your cities. So they're all a little different, but the governments usually have added scoring as well during the empire scoring. So again, that happens when one of the empire scoring cards is revealed. Then you'll do the empire scoring, then discard that empire scoring card and replace it with another card from the deck from whence it came. So you'll keep playing like that until either the third empire scoring card is revealed. When that happens, you'll go ahead and do that third empire scoring, and then you will finish that round. So if this player drew that third empire scoring card or revealed that third empire scoring card, then the next player can get to finish their turn. Back up to the start player. Then you'll play one more complete round, and then you'll go to end of game scoring. Now, when you're finishing up after that third empire scoring card, when you're finishing that round and your one additional round, if another empire scoring card were to be revealed, you would not do fourth empire scoring. You'll never do more than 3 empire scorings. But anyway, as I mentioned, once that third empire scoring card is done, you'll finish the current round, play one more full round, and then you'll go and do end of game scoring. An additional end of game trigger: if one of these or 2 of these 3 stacks become empty, Civilization Achievement, Wonders, or Golden Ages, if 2 of those become empty because they've been taken by players before the third empire scoring card is revealed, that will also trigger the end game. Well, actually, after 2 of those stacks are empty, you'll go ahead and perform empire scoring. Even if the third empire scoring card is revealed, you'll perform empire scoring, and then finish the current round and do one additional round. And if another empire scoring card is revealed during that, just as I said before, you'll never do a fourth empire scoring. So you wouldn't do a fourth empire scoring if an additional empire scoring card is revealed when you're finishing up after you've done that last third empire scoring. But in either case, you'll then go to final scoring, where you'll get 2 victory points for every city that you have on the board and 1 victory point for every town that you have on the board. For your wonders, you'll get victory points depending on what it says on the tile that you have for that wonder. You'll get the victory points for your civilization, achievement, and golden age tiles that you've collected. You'll get victory points for project cards that you've built during your turn. For instance, like this one, you get 1 victory point per culture symbol in your play area at the end of the game, and this one also counts as 1. So the different projects that you've built will give you different scoring opportunities. Technology cards are worth victory points. For instance, this one's worth 3, and this one at the end of the game score victory points equal to your highest project. So there's different technology cards that you'll have that will have victory point scoring on them. Manufactory towns, such as this one, will give you end of game scoring if you've got these unique trade goods. So for instance, if this player had silver and stone and wood trade goods in their trade good area, that would give them 5 victory points. And then of course, as I mentioned earlier, you subtract any unrest that you've gotten from your tax and tariff. But again, if you have some technology or your leader that gives you negative unrest, of course you would remove that from your unrest total first, and then still any positive unrest you would subtract from your total victory points. And then whoever has the highest total of victory points wins the game. If there's a tie for most players at the end of the game, if there's a tie for most victory points at the end of the game, then amongst those tied players, the player who has the most wonders would win. And if there's still a tie after that, then it's the player that amongst those tied players that has the most money that wins the game. So that's it. I think I've gone over everything. I think it's pretty much set back up to how it was right after my had it set up. So let's go through a couple of rounds. All right, this video is pretty long already, so I'll try to run through a couple of quick round, maybe just one round. This is our starting player. I think I've got everything set back up how it was right after setup and gaining starting technologies or whatever. So it's the blue player's turn. So we'll just say he's going to want to gain some stone. So he is going to do the work action, which is population plus production. Well, he currently has no stone production, but he does have 7 population, so that's going to give him 7 stone. So there's 5, 6, 7, and that will be his turn. Alright, so we come to the red player's turn. He thinks he's going to go ahead and take this farm town from the build offer. Remember, when you take a town that's free, he's going to put that in his area. He gains 5 food and 1 food production, so we'll put his food production up 1. And then he gains 5 food, so we'll put that over in his area. Then he'll take a farm town, and he's got to put it next to an existing city he has. This is the only city he has. So he'll just put it right here, and then he gains this trade good, and he'll put that on his player board. And now we have to replace the build card in the build offer that he took. And now we go on to the green player's turn. And we'll say the green player, he wants to build one of these port cities. So he'll take a port city from the build offer, put that in his play area. Now that costs, when you're building a city, that costs 4 stone and 2 population. So he got his 4 stone. And then he's got to discard 2 of his population. He also gains 10 money. And he adds 10 money to the tax and tariff bonus area. So that's here. and then he needs to place his port city. Remember, those have to go where these fish and ship tokens are, so he's going to place his port city there in Greece, and now this becomes a trade good for him, and it increases his food production by 3. Alright, then the last thing he'll do is replace the build offer, and that reveals a new project. Alright, now we're back to blue. He thinks he's going to build a port city as well. So he'll take this port city card, put that in his play area. He's got to pay 4 stones, so he'll put a 5 and get 1 back, and then he's got to pay 2 of his population. And then he gains 10 money, as well as putting 10 to the tax and tariff holding area. And now he'll place one of his port cities, and he'll place it in this location. Remember, it can go in any region as long as it goes in a port city space. So he'll gain this trade good and increase his food production by 3. And now he'll refill the build offer. Got a farm town there. Alright, we're back to the red player. Remember, his leader has a thing where he gains a victory point for each culture pillar of civilization icon that he has at the end. So right now he's got 2. There is a technology with no requirements, so he's going to get that. So he's got to pay 5 ideas, and then he'll take this drama technology. Now you can see this game and all these cards take up a lot of room, so on this small table I'm already running low on room, so what I end up having to do is maybe just stack one on top of another. But he now gains 5 ideas, so really he should have just kept that, because that netted out, and that'll be worth the victory points at the end, and it gives him an extra icon where he'll score victory points. And lastly, she will refill the technology offer. And there's one for iron. Alright, it's the green player's turn. Now, on that last turn, she built this port city, which has a science pillar of civilization icon. And remember, she had this, or he or she had this technology which required a science icon, which they now have. So as a free action on their turn, they can go ahead and play this. I'll just put it here, and that gives them one idea production per icon. So now they have 1, 2, so that gives them 2 idea production. And just to show a different action, we'll say maybe this player, for their action, they're going to do a military, and they're going to recruit 2. Remember, they can recruit up to 2 military units, so they'll pay 10 money to recruit 2. Alright, so they're going to recruit an infantry and a cavalry. Really, the only difference in these comes into play with, I believe, some technology cards give you bonuses if you have cavalry or an infantry in the region. So I decided to go ahead and get one of each. Now remember, these have to go in a region where you have a city. So this player could put them either here in Greece or here in Italy. They have to go in the same one. I think they are going to put them here in Greece. So they'll just put them on this unused hex here. Okay, that'll bring us back to the blue player. Now I'm just going to play ahead a little bit until we get to something that I haven't shown yet. Alright, here I've played 1 round ahead. It's the blue player's turn again. He's building a farm town. I just wanted to show this because I don't think I showed this or talked about this even in my rules overview. So he's already gained his 5 food and 1 food production. He's getting ready to place his town. Remember, that has to go adjacent to a city. If you place it on one of these that has like this stone +2 or I know there's like a food +2. So he's going to place it here, this farm town next to his city. Now this counts as a resource, and then it also gives +2 stone production. And the food one is similar. It counts as it counts as a trade good, and it also would increase your food production +2. So those trade goods that have a +2 on them, they count as a trade good as well as increasing your production for whatever that is. All right, I'll go ahead and play ahead off camera again until I get to something else I haven't shown. All right, here's another thing I've talked about in the rules overview, but I haven't actually shown it's the green player's turn. Now he wants to get this census technology. Technologies cost 5 ideas. He doesn't have any ideas, but remember, you can pay with money at 2 to 1. So for 5 ideas, he can pay 10 money, which that's what he's going to do. And then he gets this census technology. Now it has a requirement. He could acquire it and just put it face down if he didn't have the requirements or didn't want to play it yet, but he does. He needs 1 science and 1 government, which he has the science there and the government there, so he can go ahead and play that. And that gives him +3 tax production and gains 1 population. So there's, oops, wrong one. And so just to show this is a 5 population, so this player's gaining 1, so I'm just going to replace it with the 5. They had 4, so gain 1, so now they have a 5 population. Alright, that brings us to the blue player. We'll show something else that we haven't shown. This player is going to take, oh, we forgot to replace that technology card. Alright, we did that. This player is going to take a population action. So both the current cards are pay 20 food. So he's got 5, 10, 15, and he'll just pay, well, there's 16, so he's got to pay for 4. So he'll spend a 10. He's got to spend 8 money to pay for 4 food resources, so he'll get 2 back. And then he can take one of those population cards. Now you don't actually take this into your play area. He gains 3 population and then just discards this out of play. So he gains 3, so I gave him a 5 and removed 2 of his 1 value population. And now he's got to put a new population card in the offer. So this time there's one that's a +1 population for 5 food. Okay, I'm going to play ahead again until I get to something we haven't seen. Alright, I've played ahead as the green player's turn. He did a population where he paid 20 food and got 3 population. And when he revealed the next population card, it was an empire scoring card. That one comes up early because the population deck is pretty small. So now we have to do empire scoring. This first empire scoring should be pretty easy because there's not very many cities out and there's not any wonders out. So remember, we'll determine influence in each region. So first of all, here in the Gaul region, blue is the only one with any influence in there. They get 2 points of influence for their city. Nobody else has any, so they'll just get that. So they'll get victory points of 3 points plus 1 for each city and wonder that they have. So they'll just get 3 points plus 1 city, so a total of 4 points. If there were other opponents' cities in there, they would also score points for those as well. So if you have this version, you just have to either download some kind of score pad or just write it on a piece of paper, but you would write down 4 points for blue in this empire scoring. All right, then for the Italia region, green is the only one with influence in there. They would have 3 points of influence, but since they're the only one there, they're just going to automatically win, and they'll get 3 points plus 1 for each city or wonder that's in there, so a total of 4 for them in Italia. We'll come over here to Greece. Again, green's the only one in there. They have 2, 3, 4. You get 1 for each military unit, so 4 points of influence. But they're the only ones in there, so again, they're going to score 3 plus 1 for their city, so 4 points. I don't think we have any contested regions. If there was somebody that was second place, remember, they would score 2 points for the region. But this player, red, is the only one in Assyria here that has a city. He has 1 city, so that's 2 points of influence. So again, he's going to win. There's nobody else in there, so he'll get 3 points plus 1 for a city, so a total of 4 points. Here, he has 2, 3 points of influence. He'll get a total of 4 points in there as well, 3 plus 1 for the city. And then over here to Numidia, and blue is the only one in there. He's got 2, 3, 4 points of influence, but he's the only one in there, so he'll get 3 points plus 1 for the city, so 4 points. So that's a pretty simple empire scoring since we didn't have any contested regions. But you can kind of see how that works. Anyway, I think I'll go ahead and wrap it up because this video is very long already. But I think you get an idea how the game plays. I think I showed most of the actions. I didn't show a player take a tax and tariff action, but it's pretty simple. Just depending on which one of these cards you take, you get money. Like this one, you get money for your population, plus how many government symbols you have, plus whatever your tax production is. And then you would also get the money in here in the holding area. And the tariff, you would get 3 times your unique trade goods. So this player would get, 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 times the number of cities they have. So this player has 1. I thought they had a ports or in another city. So yeah, here 2. So 2 cities. So 2 times 2, they would add 4, and then whatever their tariff production is, which is 0. So they would total that up and get that amount of money. Plus, if there was any money in the holding area, they would get that as well. Anyway, I think I'm going to wrap it up. I did enjoy playing the game. It does take a lot of table space. I mean, it's not too bad right now, but I've only done a few turns. But when I played the full game, I mean, my whole table was covered up. I mean, I had stacked cards stacked 5 deep like this. So that is kind of a pain. It takes up a little bit too much table space because you end up getting, a ton of technology cards and buildings and projects, and they're all around your player board. And anyway, it just seems like it is a huge table hog. The rules were not too bad, but there are some things that weren't, just specific enough where I did have to look up, and some of the cards as well. Their uses were, I had to look them up and see. I had to look up on Board Game Geek. I found a fact that answered a lot of my questions, but I did have some questions. So again, the rules aren't terrible, but even like in setup where it says you do the technology card, I mean, you can use your technology cards if you meet the requirements, but it hasn't even explained, you haven't even gotten to the part of the rules that mention how you meet the requirements. So there's just a few things that are a little off there. And then, we just showed one quick empire scoring, which wasn't too bad because, the regions weren't too contested. But there's, 2 more empire scorings later in the game. And, then by that time you have a lot of these regions are contested. It just seems to be a lot of scoring. And then, of course, then there's a final scoring at the end of the game. And you got to remember all the cards you have that affect in-game scoring, and governments you have that affect empire scoring, and some technology cards that affect empire scoring. There's just a lot of scoring, and no, in this retail version, no score track, victory point track, or anything like that. So to me, it just seemed like maybe there's a little too much scoring, and I definitely, as I've complained about already, wish that this version came with some sort of, if not a victory point tracking board, at least some sort of scoring pad. But overall, I enjoyed playing the game. I've only played it solo by myself as three players, and that seemed to work out well. I know if you have one of the other two versions, it comes with some kind of solo mode, specific solo mode, which I don't have that, so I can't say how that works or not. But I think it's a fun game. I want to play it with other people and see how that works out. But I better end this. It's gone on a long time. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.